The rain poured relentlessly over the city, washing away the dust from the glass towers that scraped the sky. Inside one of those towers sat Jonathan Reed, the 42-year-old CEO of Reed Tech Industries, a billion-dollar company known for its innovation, precision, and pride. He stared out of his office window that morning, lost in thoughts about profit charts and deadlines. But little did he know that within the next few hours, a simple question he'd ask would change his life, and his company, forever. If you believe that kindness and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, because today's story is a reminder that compassion can sometimes build more than any business ever could. It all began on a cloudy Monday when Jonathan decided to take a surprise inspection at one of the company's new warehouse projects on the outskirts of the city. He wanted to ensure quality, punctuality, and the company's image were intact. As his car pulled into the construction site, he noticed a group of men working tirelessly in the mud, lifting heavy boxes, welding metal, and fixing panels. Amid them, one man caught his attention, not because of his strength, but because of the logo on his old, scratched toolbox. It was his company's logo. Not just similar, it was identical. Jonathan frowned. The man was clearly not an employee. His clothes were rugged, his boots worn, and his hands looked like they'd known hard labor for years. The CEO stepped out of his car, his polished shoes sinking slightly into the damp ground, and approached the man who was kneeling by a set of broken pipes. "Excuse me," Jonathan said in a firm tone that demanded respect. "Why's my company's logo on your toolbox?" The man froze. Slowly, he looked up, his tired blue eyes meeting Jonathan's sharp, questioning gaze. His face was lined with exhaustion and humility. "Sir, it's a long story," he murmured, his voice cracking slightly. Jonathan folded his arms, unimpressed. "I have time," he replied. The man introduced himself as Michael Turner, a single father of an 8-year-old boy named Ethan. He wasn't an employee of Reed Tech, at least not anymore. Years ago, Michael had worked as a junior engineer at the same company when things in his life were different. He was young, ambitious, and newly married, with dreams of designing machines that made life easier for others. But life has its way of testing people. When his wife was diagnosed with leukemia, everything changed. Medical bills piled up faster than he could pay them, and no matter how many extra shifts he took, it was never enough. One day, he was forced to choose between buying medicine for his wife and paying rent. He chose medicine, and the next month, when his rent was overdue, he received an eviction notice. Then, as if that wasn't enough, his company downsized during an economic slowdown. Michael was one of the hundreds laid off. Jonathan had never heard this story. He was too high up in the company then, too focused on growth to know the personal stories behind every employee ID. Michael continued, his voice low and heavy. "After my wife passed away, I couldn't find steady work. I used to come by the company gates, hoping someone would remember me, maybe give me a small repair job. No one did." He looked away, embarrassed. "One day, when the old factory was being renovated, I found this broken toolbox with the Reed Tech logo in the trash. I fixed it and kept it. It reminded me of better days, and gave me strength to keep going." Jonathan's expression softened slightly. There was no deceit in the man's words, only honesty and quiet pain. Over the years, Michael started doing small repair jobs in neighborhoods, fixing pipes, welding, anything to survive. His son Ethan would often sit beside him after school, handing him tools and doing homework in the corner. Sometimes, they didn't have dinner, but Michael would smile and say, "Tomorrow will be better, buddy." And somehow, that hope kept them alive. Jonathan didn't know what to say. He had seen countless workers, but there was something about this man's dignity in poverty that struck a chord. The CEO stood silently as rain trickled from his coat, watching Michael carefully put away his tools, the same tools that bore his company's name. That night, Jonathan couldn't sleep. The image of that man, kneeling in the rain, haunted him. He thought about his own father, who used to say, "A company is only as good as the people it forgets." Maybe it was time to remember. The next morning, Jonathan ordered a background check on Michael Turner, not to punish him, but to understand him. Everything checked out: clean record, hard-working, consistent odd jobs for the past 7 years, glowing reviews from clients. But something else stood out. Michael had designed a small mechanical lifting device years ago that was never patented. When the research team looked at it, they were shocked. The concept was remarkably similar to a tool ReedTech had recently begun developing. Michael had created something innovative, years before the company had even thought of it. Jonathan drove back to the site the next day. Michael was there again, working quietly. The CEO waited until he took a break, then approached him. "You designed this?" he asked, showing him a sketch from the company's database. Michael looked at it, surprised. "Yeah, that was an old idea I never got to finish." Jonathan nodded slowly. "You know, our engineers recently developed a very similar model. It's already in production." Michael's eyes widened slightly, but he smiled faintly. "That's good. Maybe it means my idea was worth something after all." For a moment, Jonathan felt something stir inside him, admiration mixed with guilt. He realized how many brilliant minds might have been lost in the shadows, struggling not because they lacked talent, but because life had been unkind. Within a week, Jonathan made a decision that shocked everyone at ReedTech. He called a company-wide meeting. When the employees gathered in the main hall, murmurs filled the air. The CEO walked onto the stage, holding that same old toolbox. "Most of you probably don't know this man," he began, his voice echoing across the hall. "But this toolbox belongs to someone who once worked here. Someone who lost everything, yet never lost hope." The crowd went silent as Michael, wearing his simple work clothes, was guided onto the stage. He looked nervous, confused, and out of place under the bright corporate lights. Jonathan turned to him and said, "This man's story reminded me of why this company exists. Not to forget the people who built it, but to remember them." Then, in front of everyone, Jonathan offered Michael a full-time position, not as a laborer, but as a senior design consultant in the innovation department. Gasps rippled through the room. Michael's eyes filled with tears. He shook his head, unable to speak. I don't deserve this," he whispered. Jonathan smiled. "You do. You just never got your chance." As applause erupted, even the most stoic employees couldn't hide their emotions. For the first time in years, the company felt human again. Michael's life began to change. He moved into a small but comfortable home with his son. Ethan's grades improved, and he often told his classmates proudly, "My dad works for ReedTech now." Michael poured his heart into designing new tools that made work safer for laborers. His invention saved the company millions and improved conditions for thousands of workers worldwide. But for Jonathan, the true change was personal. He started a new initiative called the Second Chance Program, hiring skilled workers who had lost their jobs due to hardships. Within a year, productivity rose, employee satisfaction doubled, and ReedTech's public image soared. But more importantly, it became a symbol of humanity in business. Months later, during a company awards ceremony, Jonathan stood once again before his employees and said, "Sometimes the people who carry your logo are the ones who define what it stands for." He looked at Michael in the front row, sitting beside his son, smiling proudly. And sometimes, a single act of kindness can rebuild more than a company, it can rebuild lives. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal, where we bring real stories that remind us the world still has good people, and second chances do exist. Before you leave, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell us what kindness means to you. Because sometimes, sharing your story can inspire someone else to never give up. That rainy day, when a CEO asked, "Why's my company's logo on your toolbox?" he didn't just find an answer, he found a lesson. A reminder that success means nothing if it forgets compassion. And somewhere, in a quiet workshop lit by the evening sun, Michael Turner smiled as his son painted a new toolbox. Not with the company logo this time, but with 3 simple words that would forever define their journey.